Scotland beat Wales at Murrayfield, dominated for the first 50 minutes, but huge credit must go to Wales for how they came back at the end. Hello, amateurs. Welcome back to our Six Nations series. And I've got Taff with me again today. Taff, how you doing?
I'm all right. Yeah, I feel a bit better than I did after the French game at the beginning of this Six Nations. So, yeah, a little bit more positive today, I definitely, Tim.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get into this one straight away. And as always, a game at Murrayfield. Man, I love the anthems there. The Scottish anthem in particular, done at Murrayfield, is just majestic. I love it.
Yeah, it's always a great, you know, whatever nation, there's something about that Scottish one that just feels kind of really angry and up for it because, it's basically written to have a go at the English. It's about, you come up here and we'll show you who's boss. So there's an antagonism about it that's always quite enthralling. So yeah, and again, as we said just before the pod, like it was a really really fun game. Enjoyed it. Lots of running rugby, and I think whenever Scotland are playing these days, it's a game that's going to be worth watching for all sorts of reasons: the speed, some of the the way in which Scotland attack the game, and of course they'll always offer the opposition chances as well. So there's always a thing which is there's going to be something happening here.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of my thoughts was that Wales probably needed to get quite a good start. And they actually did because they got what was a relatively sort of cheap penalty at the line out and kicked to get 3-0 ahead after a couple of minutes. But then the Scots came back into it and were just absolutely ruthless with some of the speed and the accuracy of their attack.
Yeah, I think the two things that came to me were speed and space. So for me, I think what Scotland do, and Townsend obviously as a coach and as a player himself, and with Finn Russell, what they have is a commitment to those two things. So we have to do things quickly and we have to find space. We have to run into the space. And I think that's one of the things that when Scotland are on their game, they have an ability to play with their eyes, which is fantastic. And the French do as well. And, lots of teams do, New Zealand as well. But Scotland on their best day play really well with their eyes and they see the space in the backs and in the forwards. And you saw that with the couple of tries in which the backs saw the space, a little bit like when Shane Williams was playing for Wales. He didn't mind running sideways if it got him into space. And I think that was one of the things, again, in that first half where you saw Scotland at their best, the backs and the forwards, but certainly Russell was able to orchestrate some of those wide breaks into space. And suddenly you had defenders biting in, and then it was a 2-on-1, and then they're away.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it was the Scottish wingers in particular who really created that stuff. So they got these guys one-on-one with a bit of space for them to do their magic. I think it was Darcy Graham who set up one of the tries, Duhan van der Merwe who set up one of the others, or had the key, that core moment where the defence was broken was because of those guys getting one-on-ones in space. And it's tough, but as a defender, you've just got to try and hold your ground a little bit, try not to commit too early. And then if you feel like, and also trust the inside defender a bit as well. Because I think there was one, it was the Duhan van der Merwe one when he kind of bounced outside Ellis Mee and then Blair Murray put in. I think Mee would have actually tackled van der Merwe, but for the whole world, it looked like he probably wasn't. So it's really tough, really tough.
No, I agree. I think that's a little bit of inexperience again in the Welsh backs there. A really great defensive unit would understand that Mee had some speed. He's going to come back. I don't need to bite in now. Murray bought in and then and bit in and then he was away. So here's the question for you, Timmy. Van der Merwe, is he any good?
I've got really mixed opinions about this because, like, in some things, he is the best player in the world. Like his pace and the way he bounced, that move that he did to get outside Mee and then make the pass was absolutely world class. Like, I think he's brilliant at stuff like that. But then sometimes I look at him and I think, like, you're not that good a rugby player generally, but he's brilliant at some things, absolutely world class at certain things.
They talked about it in the commentary how he has improved, his ability to see that type of space and fend better and pass, put the ball in two hands, pass, etc. But I do have that little bit of a sense that and again, he was a British Lion in the last tour and scored a lot of tries. You worry that the highest level, whether his decision making will be absolutely spot on, but in that type of game yesterday, he can look like, in schoolboy rugby when there's just a really fantastic, massive guy on the other side, that when he goes to the top level, he might not make it. But, I suppose the stats don't lie. He scores a lot of tries, and he scores them against England. He scores them against all the top nations. So I think in that sense you can't argue with the numbers. But yeah, there's that little bit, isn't there, that still thinks, is he actually any good?
Yeah, and sometimes his defensive decision making isn't the best as well. He can get caught out a little bit defensively too. But yeah, I agree. And he is improving though. So I think that was a key point. He definitely is improving as the years go by. Okay, let's look at the other side of the ball in the first half because Wales' attack didn't really flow as much as it did against the Irish. They didn't quite look as convincing in the shapes they were running and the joy they got out of it. Why do you think that was?
Well, I think probably they were the Ireland game was almost a case of it doesn't really matter, it's a free hit. And I think the feeling was in this Scotland game is now they had to show some kind of sense of attacking structure. And I think the challenge is that at the moment they don't have the physicality, they don't have the runners, they don't have ultimately the top players who can execute to the right level to make those structures come alive. So when Ireland have a structure, or England, or any of these teams, the physicality of some of those runners means that the gain line can be broken. You can get enough speed across the ball. And I think probably just lacking that little bit of extra physicality and speed across the gain line that's going to make a difference. I know Llewellyn played pretty well at centre, as did Thomas again. And they've certainly, improved a lot. But you feel like with Anscombe there, it was they were trying to be a proper rugby team. And that probably at this point, they're not quite at the same level as the other teams in the tournament. Having said that, again, what was promising is that the appetite to get on the ball, I thought, especially from the forwards, was really, really positive. The front row worked hard. Again, Jack Morgan, outstanding in the back row. The hunger and appetite, I think, is great. And I think that's really important, is the team aren't hiding. They're not just kind of, and sometimes you can hide, don't want the ball, just, let's just go through the phases, not try anything. I think, again, that the sense of appetite to carry the ball, try to make breaks, try to put themselves on the front foot, I think was really encouraging. But yeah, ultimately, they're still a team in a huge amount of transition, and they're growing up in the sense of having confidence in themselves to carry the ball across the gain line. But as you said, a decent start, got into the game. Obviously, the tries then against them knocks the confidence, and they struggled really to get enough, I suppose, into the opposition territory, and therefore start to kind of build some pressure. And because then you sort of that becomes a problem. Then you can't build pressure, so you don't get the confidence. So you're not running as hard, and then I think they were constantly on the back foot. Thank goodness, though, before half time, they got that try. I think that was really, really important. The Murray try was a really beautiful kick. They talked about it in the commentary as well, that Van der Merwe, again, got himself in a slightly wrong position. I thought the way that Jiffy talked about staying on the inside shoulder of the ball as it comes across is really, really smart. As that defender, you can always, still take the angle. And by running outside it, he obviously sold himself and the space was there. So in that sense, that was really good, and it showed that they've got vision, they've got the ability to do something a bit fresher in attack. But yeah, it wasn't really until they changed the fly half in the second half, Jared Evans came on, that things started to feel a little bit more potent.
Yeah, for sure. I think also, so credit to the Scots as well in the way they defended. I think we're seeing teams defend with a lot less line speed this tournament than we have previously. And the Scots are very good at just being patient, just holding their spaces, filling the pitch width to width, so it looks like there's nowhere to go, and then making late decisions and spending. And this is something Matt Sherratt talked about afterwards, which I'm really impressed with Matt Sherratt. He talked about timing the tackle. So everybody talks about ruck speed and slowing the rucks down, but if you can slow them down before they even get to the ruck as well, that's just as valuable. And the Scots are really, really good at that.
Yeah, and then I think Ritchie in the back row for the Scots did a great job over the ball. Ferguson as well had a really strong game, and I think that really helps them. As you said, there's quite a lot of intelligence in that Scottish team, and I think Townsend wants players who can make decisions, and I think that you can see that then in defence. So yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that one.
Yeah, and these are all quite positive things we're talking about, but the Welsh did shoot themselves in the foot just a little bit towards the end of the first half. First with Will Griff-John giving a stupid penalty away when he was offside, and then kicked the ball out of Ben White's hands as well for a yellow. Just
Yeah.
the dullest thing I've ever seen on a rugby
I mean,
pitch, probably.
yeah, it's and it's heartening to see some junior club rugby just going on there at the highest level, like absolute brain dead prop. Here he goes in the old hopeless Onions third 15, um, just kicking the ball out the scrum half's hands because no one's seeing this. It's fine. It's on the blind side. No one will see it, and it was amazing. And you think, oh, that, and then of course, as you said, probably the other one is the crossfield, and when Murray pushed it back inside, it's like, oh, and you saw obviously in the Ireland France game a similar tactic, beautifully executed. But here it was just, there was no need to put the pressure on themselves there. They're down by points. It was a really, really immature piece of play from everyone really at that point.
Yeah, because it was 21-8 at that point and just before half time. So, although quite a long way behind, it was still attainable. But then to give that try away, 28-8, and it was a very long way back from there, especially the way it happened as well. Some other players I want to pick out, though, I thought played well. I thought Blair Kinghorn was great for Scotland. Again, just a really intelligent rugby player,
Yeah.
and like he's looking pacey, and he just makes good decisions, and he runs into good holes. And when you got somebody like Ben Russell putting the ball in front of you, like it really lets him shine. And I thought Toby Faletau, go on.
Yeah, on that Kinghorn point, I thought, his first try, really nice, good finish, a little hitch kick as well. The second try, I thought was a brilliant try. It came from the line out, and I thought Russell just dictated the whole thing perfectly there. They won the line out. They went 2-3 on the same way, and then Kinghorn's line outside the centre, I think it was, or was outside Roberts, was beautiful. And I just thought it was one of those intelligent tries where you're in the red zone and you know exactly what you're going to do, and you score the try and you go back to halfway. Because it can be like, bang, 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 and you're not really getting anywhere. But I thought that one was perfectly done in terms of the way Russell just dictated where the ball was going to go, and Kinghorn picked like perfect line on the outside, and bang, there you go. Made it look very, very simple, but it was a brilliant try. I thought that one.
Yeah, because Kinghorn didn't even get touched as he went over the line either, which is always nice to see. The other reason I was disappointed that try got disallowed, though, was because it denied us a massive grandstand finish, because that would have got Wales back to within 6 points from absolutely nowhere. They looked dead and buried 60 minutes, absolutely out of the game. And somehow, and we've seen it in this fixture before when you get these remarkable finishes.
Yeah. And I think that, again, as back to the appetite of the Welsh team to play, was really, really positive. Even in that last minute where they did score, it comes from the fact they turn the ball over in their own 22, and it goes out to Rogers, on the wing, and then they break, and that poor prop who just found himself offside kicked it out just to end the game, and he's like, no, offside. He's like, oh, come on. And then but again, the try they score there, good appetite to run a move. They playfully went off the back of it, and it's a really good finish. So I think in that sense, it was. You've got to be positive. I think the disappointing thing ultimately is that they're not able to exert real pressure on the opposition. Like for 10 minutes, get in the 22, get in the red zone, come away with the 7 points, back to halfway. Let's go again. It does feel a little bit like, it's all a little bit immature in some respects. And of course, I suppose that's true. That's how it is. But in terms of the grandstand finish, that would have been great if that try had been given.
Yeah, but how do you think the Scots are feeling about that? Because, again, they've got to a point where they've dominated a game and they weren't clinging on at the end for sure, not even close, but it could have been that way.
Yeah, and actually I saw a couple, you saw a little bit after the I think the third Welsh try, the lad who scored his first try, I've forgotten his name, but they go back to halfway and Scotland suddenly turn it on again. And you're like, okay, here it is. And that's the kind of what a top team does. It exerts itself on the game. And I think still Scotland probably are not quite there yet because of the physicality that some of these other top teams have, just to go, we're going to outmuscle you for 3 or 4 minutes now and just put you back in your box. Scotland have to do it through speed. And they do it, we're going to be just quicker than you for the next 3 or 4 minutes. But it's very, very tiring, that. And I think that's where at sometimes where they just need to go, okay, we can slow this down. We're going to take 4 or 5 phases just to exhaust you through short up hits and stuff like that. That's the thing that a South Africa or France as well can do. And I think, but it was, as I said, going from that France Ireland game, which felt like a massive, big, physical encounter, to this, it felt like a little bit of a kind of step down in weight class in their boxing analogy. But it didn't make it any less enjoyable because you can see, teams are trying to play rugby.
Yeah, I thought it was a very enjoyable game overall, and I was delighted we got a nice conclusion to it as well, because it would have felt a little bit drab if it had just fitted away in the last 20 minutes with nothing really happening. So that was good. Okay, any other players, Taff, that you want to mention? Any other bits and pieces that you've got in your notebook?
I thought the Welsh scrum did pretty well, put a lot of pressure on the Scots. I thought that was good to see. A dominant Welsh scrum isn't something that's kind of been known in the last few years, so I think that's really good again. I thought both scrum halves played pretty well. I have to say that the Scottish scrum half, he's fantastic. White, I think he's an excellent player, and I think he will go with the Lions because I think he's got the speed and again intelligence to really run a game, and I thought that was really impressive. And yeah, I thought in terms again of the Scottish backs, really impressive. The lad Morgan looks pretty strong. Whether he and Johns will get in the Lions team, I'm not so sure. There's a lot of good players around, but the fact that they're playing with such confidence on those Australian harder grounds might mean that they've got a really good chance. In terms of Wales, I think again, as I said, Jack Morgan looks really strong. Jared Evans coming on really good, and Murray at fullback really strong. So yeah, I think the Welsh can take some positives from that and hopefully finish the tournament strong. But as I said, it's still a team that's in many ways immature, and the one thing is at some point that enthusiasm for playing can't be, I suppose, undermined too much by not getting points on the board and sort of retreating into their shell a bit. And that's the hard thing, I think, for this team, is to keep that enthusiasm and appetite going, even if they're not playing at the top level quite yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they've got the right coach in place to do that. I'm impressed with him every time I hear him speak. He just concentrates on the things that he can control. So he's completely ignoring the fact that they're on a massive losing streak. He's completely ignoring all of that completely and just focusing on getting them to be a slightly better team next week, which is all he can do, obviously.
And he's obviously going back to Cardiff, so they're going to need a coach. What are your thoughts on that? Anyone you think is going to be in the frame for that?
Well, there's a few people, isn't there, that have been earmarked, but I don't know. It's a big job. I think they need to get that DOR position in first. That seems to be the more important role. Get their sort of core structures in place before they get the head coach to then layer on top of that.
The trouble is, it's another 18-month, 2-year cycle to get all those things in place. And it's hard for the team to maintain its enthusiasm if it's still, you're in constant transition. You need, in any team, business or otherwise, you need a couple of quick wins. And as you said, Matt Sheeran, he's at least focused on the enthusiasm and energy the team are bringing to the pitch. And that's the only thing maybe at the moment that's the positive. And how do you maintain that if it's a constant conversation about, well, rebuilding and wait until we've got the structures in place?
Yeah, it's tough. It is very tough. They're in a pretty tricky spot at the moment, even with this sort of moment of sort of enthusiasm that's going around at the moment. Okay, people at home, that is what we think. But what do you think? Any key moments that we missed that you want us to discuss? We can do that in the comments down below. Go and write us a message right now and give this video a thumbs up while you're down there. If you don't mind, it helps other great rugby fans like you find it. Taff, thank you so much for your time today and expertise.
No worries, Tim. Great always to see you, and look forward to seeing you soon.
Absolutely. And people at home, you can subscribe there. You can watch that one next. Don't forget to get out and play.